Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Agency Growth Bootcamp, a series of free lessons on how to scale your marketing agency from zero to a hero without the founder burnout and without breaking the fulfillment. For those of you who don't know me or don't follow my channel, I'm Artem. I've scaled my own marketing agency from zero to $200,000 a month in recurring revenue in less than 2 years. I wanted to record this bootcamp to help you discover the exact framework that takes most agencies from $10,000 to $15,000 a month in revenue. It's the so-called danger zone. You will understand why we call it the danger zone in the next couple of slides that I have prepared for you today, to $100,000 a month in recurring revenue and beyond in a sustainable and predictable way. Once you learn all of the lessons that we will be covering with you in this bootcamp, you will understand how to stop trading your time for money, how to prevent the founder burnout, and most importantly, how to implement the systems that work for you and allow you to buy back your time so you could focus on what you do best as a founder, which is high-level strategy and sales and marketing. This particular lesson will not be focused on any particular topic. There will be no in-depth explanation of sales or operations or fulfillment. This particular lesson will be focused on the reality of what it takes to scale an agency, some of the lessons, some of the common mistakes, just the overarching principles, not necessarily connected to one another. Each slide can be looked at as a standalone slide where we will be covering different principles. So don't think of it as a connected presentation for the purposes of this particular lesson. In the future lessons, we will be going in more depth on each one of these topics. We will be covering the sales in more depth, we will be covering the operations in more depth, we will be covering fulfillment in more depth, as well as hiring and delegation as well. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about the fragile agency trap. Most agency owners, potentially including yourself, usually plateau between $10,000 to $15,000 a month in recurring revenue. You're selling, delivering, and managing everything by yourself. You're caught in the founder trap. You're the best at what you do, so clients want you and you alone. They basically just want your time and nobody's else. But that's what the problem is as well. That means you cannot take any time off, you cannot scale, and you cannot build a real business that functions without you, which is what all of us want to accomplish when we first start building an agency. We want to have a business that eventually works without us, and we continue getting paid and enjoying our life while agency continues to operate without our day-to-day involvement. Growth during that fragile agency trap stage feels very fragile, as you can understand. As soon as you take the day off, the revenue stops coming in, you start panicking, and you're back to square one where you basically have to sit in front of your computer all day long and do all of the client fulfillment by yourself. You may not necessarily have a lead generation problem, you have a system problem. That is the reframe I want you to start thinking about. Already, we will not be talking about it in depth right now, but as you get to go through the lessons that I will be covering in this bootcamp in the coming weeks and months, you will understand that what we are trying to teach you here is mostly focused on the systems that you have to build and implement in your agency to start slowly buying back your time and being more efficient with where you are located to enable future agency growth and scale potential. A few common agency mistakes that people make that prevent their agencies from scaling are: founder is a bottleneck for sales, delivery, and operations, which is what we just talked about. If clients want to work with you and you alone, you usually will be stuck in the operations and fulfillment until the very last moment where you can no longer do it because you need to continue growing. No documented processes or playbooks. It is going to be extremely important that you start scaling. You will learn about it in the next lessons that will be included in that bootcamp. Number 3, team members lack clarity on their role. That kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of processes and playbooks. Number 4, revenue growth doesn't translate to profit growth. And last but not least is founder yourself is burnt out, exhausted, and considering quitting. Something I have experienced myself firsthand in the last 2 years when we were growing through the aggressive agency growth. And I do want to explain you a couple of the ways of how I was able to eventually resolve this issue. It is unfortunately something that I think is impossible to avoid when you're scaling aggressively, but there are ways to minimize it. Minimize the burnout so you could continue staying in the game and continue showing up on a daily basis to eventually start removing yourself from the day-to-day operations and becoming more efficient with other sides of the business, such as sales and marketing and high-level strategy. Next slide, we'll be talking about the agency scaling map. There's 3 stages involved in scaling your agency. There's stage 1, which is a survival mode. It's when you're stuck between $0 to $10,000 a month in recurring revenue. There is stage 2, which is the danger zone. Most agencies are stuck here. That is $10,000 to $50,000 a month in recurring revenue zone. And then finally, there is stage 3, which is a leverage phase. And that stage can actually be broken down into many more stages because we consider anything past $50,000 to $100,000 a month in recurring revenue as leverage phase. That's where you get to finally have systems and people on your team that allow you to unlock the infinite scale potential. Let's quickly talk about each one of them. Stage number 1, survival mode. In this initial phase, the primary focus of yours is usually on learning what clients truly want and validating your service offering. You're often as the sole operator in your agency, directly engaging with all of the prospects and clients, defining your value proposition and finding that crucial product and market fit needed to unlock the future scale. Growth is usually all organic and highly dependent on your personal effort to reach out to the prospects and close them to make them your first clients. Stage number 2, the danger zone. As you start growing and getting more clients, the complexity in your agency starts exploding. You need to handle more clients, which means you have more moving parts and pieces in the operations, delivery, and client management. You are often doing everything by yourself and you are becoming the bottleneck for future growth and quality because you have to do fulfillment and sales all at the same time. What this results in is potential burnout and increased workload. As revenue starts scaling, you don't see the corresponding increase in profit or personal time, which makes you to start considering quitting. That's where we like to call it the death valley, the danger zone, for that reason, because you start considering quitting because you get to work so much without seeing the necessarily returns in exchange for that increased input, and you just don't want to continue doing it because when you look at it from the perspective of how many hours you work versus how much you get paid per hour, usually in that stage, 9 to 5 employees can get paid much more. But it's just the temporary stage that you need to push through to unlock level 3, which is a leverage phase. This is where the real scaling begins. By implementing the robust systems and effectively starting to delegate the tasks and responsibilities to the experienced team members that you will be hiring starting in stage 2 and continuing to hire more aggressively in stage 3, you get to unlock the exponential growth curve. The focus shifts from doing everything by yourself in the agency to building a repeatable system. Creating these repeatable processes and systems allows you to empower a skilled team of your employees or team members and allow you to start leveraging your time a lot more efficiently and focus it on strategic initiatives rather than day-to-day operations and client fulfillment. We're going to talk about 5 scaling mistakes that kill agencies. It is very important that you avoid these common pitfalls that will be derailing your growth significantly and will ultimately lead to your burnout, which again will make you quit if you're not going to push through this stage of the danger zone and if you will be making these mistakes continuously without fixing them as soon as you start identifying them. Mistake number 1, hiring before you have systems. It is very critical that you do not hire without having at least some sort of clear processes and systems in the first place. If you don't have that, the new hires cannot be onboarded effectively, which will result into the inefficiency, frustration, and drain on your resources rather than an increase in the productivity and the quality of work that you provide for your clients. You do not want to bring on team members before you have at least some sort of documentation for what the client work looks like and what they need to do in order to keep clients happy. Remember that. Mistake number 2, competing on price instead of the value that you generate for your clients. Undercutting competitors might help you win the initial clients, but it will ultimately devalue your service and it will start attracting problematic clients and making it impossible to invest in your team and deliver high quality results sustainably. Mistake number 3, taking on any client that pays. Chasing every dollar spreads your resources very thin and it prevents you from becoming an expert in your niche, whatever your niche is, and often results in working with clients who are not good fit, leading to poor outcomes and very high client churn, which can then lead to the damage in your reputation, which will then result in the decline of your agency growth and revenue, which is something we want to prevent at all costs. Mistake number 4, founder still doing the delivery work. We have already talked about it briefly on the previous slide. When the founder is bogged down in the day-to-day delivery in the stages 1 and stages 2 of the agency scaling and agency growth, there is no capacity for you to do strategic planning, team development, and business growth, keeping your agency stuck in the fragile phase. You cannot focus on scaling your agency because you need to focus your time on doing client fulfillment, and then sales and marketing suffer because of that. And then finally, mistake number 5, the lack of financial visibility. If you operate without the clear understanding of your profit margins, the overhead costs, or cash flow, you will basically be flying blind. You cannot make informed decisions, you cannot optimize your spending properly, and you cannot confidently plan for the future growth of your agency. Next, let's talk about the 3 core agency roles that you need to keep in mind when you start building out and scaling your agency. Those 3 are sales, fulfillment, and operations. Let's quickly talk about what each of them actually requires, starting with sales. Sales encompass lead sourcing and qualification, outreach and relationship building, proposal writing and closing of the prospects, retainer in negotiation, and finally client onboarding before the new clients that onboarded your agency get to be passed off to the fulfillment and operations teams. Fulfillment encompasses project delivery and quality assurance, client communication and client updates about the performance, scope management and change orders, and finally team coordination. And last but not least, operations encompass accounts, invoicing and payment processing, client communication systems, retention and upsell tracking, and financial reporting and metrics. Next, let's quickly talk about your role as a founder. Usually when you just start out your agency, or you're stuck in the survival zone, or you're stuck in the danger zone, you are in the operator mode, which is quite different from the leader mode that you get to unlock in stage 3, which is a leverage scale of your agency. So as an operator, you get to put out fires daily. You have to continuously monitor your Slack for client issues or team questions and answer them as they come up. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the world when you just start out the agency. You're the bottleneck for every decision. All problems get delivered to your table and you're the person who is expected to solve them, and you're reactive, exhausted, and stuck because of that. Because every single problem goes to your table, because you're the only person who is expected to resolve all of them, you get to be bogged down in the day-to-day client fulfillment and deliverables, unable to unlock future growth for your agency because you cannot dedicate enough time and energy to high-level strategy, sales, and marketing. And then when you get to finally shift from the operator mode to the leader mode, you finally get to focus on the revenue growth because you're dedicating more time to sales and marketing. You are finally able to start building out more repeatable systems and processes, enabling future growth and scaling of the agency. And you get to enable team autonomy by implementing those systems and processes in the first place. This allows you to be more proactive, strategic, and unlock future scale of your agency. The transition from the operator mode to the leader mode requires a few things. Number one, it requires you hiring a first team member and trusting them. It is very important that you don't just hire a person, but you actually trust them in doing their work. And having that trust will require you documenting at least some of the processes before you get to onboard them, so that these people can execute on what it is that you are selling or providing to your client without dropping the ball. You want to have some sort of documentation for the fulfillment and operations team. That's what you want to build out first before you get to build out all other systems we will talk about in the future videos. But start with documenting the fulfillment first. This will allow you to build that trust with your first hire, and then as you start doing it, you will need to eventually shift from perfectionism to delegation. Because as you start building out processes and systems, and as you start hiring more team members, as you continue scaling your agency, the perfectionism will ultimately hold you back from delegating efficiently, because you will be focused on having your team members do everything exclusively and extremely well. And the problem with that is there will be some sort of decline in quality in the initial couple of months when you start scaling. So you just need to accept that, understand that the perfectionism holds you back, and it needs to be temporarily dropped so you could enable that future scale. Then building accountability systems that don't require your presence. It kind of goes hand in hand with the processes and systems that you will be building out as you start onboarding the team members in your agencies. And you finally learning to manage people, not just tasks. That is a skill that you will need to learn. Learning how to manage other people and managing other people is not the same thing as doing the work of these people. If you're really good at the skill, it doesn't mean that you're good at teaching other people how to do it, how to do that skill, or how to perform that job. So you will need to learn how to manage people effectively. That is a skill by itself, and it is by far one of the hardest skills to learn as you start the transition from the operator to the leader in your agency. So the goal is to go from the doer to the leverage multiplier by, again, implementing those systems and processes, starting to hire actual qualified people, A players. We will talk about hiring in the future lessons in this bootcamp, and shifting your focus to sales and marketing and high-level strategy to enable future growth and scale of your agency. The systems that will enable that scale, there's a couple of them. To be precise, there's 5 systems. There's the lead generation system, there is sales system, there's delivery system, there's operations system, and there's team system. Let's put away lead generation and sales for now. Those 2 things you will continue doing as a founder for as long as possible. This will be the last systems to be built out, as you will be hiring sales last. As you start scaling your agency, the first team members that you will be hiring will be related to the fulfillment and operations. So the client delivery. So you will want to make sure that you build out the delivery system, the operations system, and the team system first. The delivery system basically means a documented playbook for executing client work consistently and to a high standard, just like you would do it by yourself. This ensures quality, reduces errors, and allows team members that will be coming to your agency to deliver results efficiently without constant oversight from yourself, from the founder, which is crucial for client satisfaction and long-term retention. Remember, agency is not just about the new client acquisition, it's also about the strong retention. I would say it's 50-50, if not more so the retention, and then acquisition is more like 40%. Operations system enables or includes efficient workflows for administrative tasks, project management, and client communication. This streamlines billing, invoicing, reporting, and internal communication, freeing up valuable time for strategic work and client engagement. And last but not least, is team system. Team system includes clear definitions of roles, responsibilities, and accountability for every single team member that will be joining your agency. This will allow to empower the individuals, foster their ownership, and ensure that everyone understands their contribution to the agency success in the long run, creating a cohesive and high-performing team who supports one another while still being independent sole contributors. Lead generation system and sales system, very briefly. Lead generation system is basically an engine for attracting and qualifying ideal clients. It ensures a consistent pipeline without constant effort from you, from the founder. This includes processes for audience identification, content marketing, outreach, and lead scoring. And then sales system is essentially a structured, consistent approach to converting qualified prospects into paying clients. This system outlines the entire sales journey from initial contact and discovery calls to the actual proposal delivery, negotiation, and closing the deal, enabling your team to sell effectively. Those two systems will be the last ones to build out because, again, you as a founder, once you start buying back your time from the client fulfillment and operations, you will want to shift your focus fully on the marketing and sales. Marketing is lead generation. And as you shift more focus there, you will be able to start dedicating more time to building out the processes and systems for these two departments. So this will be the last hires to make. We will be talking about all of the systems in their own lessons in the future episodes of this Agency Growth Bootcamp. For now, you just need to understand that the true agency growth is not about working harder. It is about building these repeatable systems that empower your team and automate essential functions in your agency. These 5 core systems will transform your agency from a founder-dependent operation to a scalable enterprise, which you can then sell at some point in the future at a decent multiple, depending on how many systems you will have in its place and depending on how much you will be able to remove yourself from the day-to-day operations. So this is the main frameworks that I wanted to cover today so that you could understand. Again, just very quickly, let's go back to the first slide. The fragile agency trap, the agency scaling map, 5 scaling mistakes that kill agencies as they start scaling, 3 core agency roles, founder mode as an operator and as a leader, systems that enable scale, and finally, today's homework for you will be the role matrix. I have included the agency role responsibility matrix into the description of this video. Please download it. There will be a few sections in that document. It looks like this. You can see right here. It will allow you to identify the bottlenecks and reclaim your leverage as a founder in your agency. I will want you to go through the steps in this document and then answer the questions and then fill it out and include essentially where you're the owner in your agency for different categories, for different roles, and then who will be the owner for those roles in the future. And I want you to audit your week, list every task you have performed over the last 7 days in your agency. I want you to categorize each task, assigning it to sales, fulfillment, or operations departments in your agency. And then I want you to identify the top 10. I want you to find the tasks that you must stop doing to start buying back your time. Most founders don't realize how much time they spend on the low value tasks. I've been in that position myself. I used to spend so much time doing low leverage activities in my agencies, thinking that I'm moving the needle forward when in fact I was just doing the busy work. This audit will help you reveal where you're leaking time and money. Once you see it, you can start delegating it, automating it, or eliminating it based on how important this function is or this particular task is for the sales or for the new customer acquisition and also for the client retention. And this single exercise has helped a lot of agency owners that I have worked with already, just our friends who we have helped to buy back 15 to 20 hours of their time per week. So please do this exercise. This will be the foundation that you need to set before you get to dive into the future lessons in this Agency Growth Bootcamp, because you will be eventually looking back at this document as you start scaling and understanding how you need to start delegating tasks accordingly and then how you need to start buying back your time accordingly.